Use the Force, Luke.
Sometimes truth isn't good enough.
I feel the need for speed.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna?
Cause it's their time. Their time. Up there. Down here, it's our time. It's our time down here.
Hey everybody, we're off to a banger start today at Winter Wolf's Den. I just knocked down like an 800 piece Ghost Rider Lego set off of my desk. Rough start, but we're going to pick up some steam here. King Z won't be joining us tonight for FrostCast episode 10. He's having some weather related complications. You might have heard there's a fairly major weather situation going on in Eastern United States. King Z unfortunately is affected a little bit by that. So our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody on the Eastern Seaboard that's affected by that. Like you might have seen in the comments section over here, the comments, live chat, whatever. I do what I do here. If you're in a position to be able to support some folks or to donate money, supplies, whichever, look around to local religious organizations of whichever faith you follow. The money has a better shot of getting to the folks that need it, as opposed to sending it to FEMA or TEMA, which could just commandeer your money and send it to other causes that they deem more worthwhile Ukraine than other things, which is kind of sad because, you know, we should be doing American aid for Americans right now because there are people that are without power, that are people without food, that are people without baby formula, bottles, diapers, clothing, medical supplies. Like we need to take care of some business before we start shipping dollars out. But that's not why you guys are here. When a Wolf's Den, we do nerd stuff. We like to talk about stuff that's going on, things that are coming out, things we read, watched, played, all that good stuff. I have a few different kind of topics lined up. I was a very busy wolf over the weekend. Saw a couple of movies, saw a show a couple of days late because I wasn't sure if King Z was going to be able to jump on. So we're going to talk, we got some Battle of the Bots. You saw that in the thumbnail. We got twin movie reviews. We're going to keep them slightly abbreviated because we realize in the interest of time and attention spans, both of which are declining these days, it seems like. They will have a lot to go through. And after that, we'll probably do some Penguin talk. I'll try to keep it mostly spoiler free. I did catch episode 2 last night. Another good one. Dude, I'm telling you guys, that's shaping up probably to be my favorite show of 2024 so far. I've seen a lot of good stuff this year, actually. You know, there's a lot to celebrate. It's just, it's not really in the IPs that we've come to hope we're getting the good stuff from, but we take what we can get. We support the stuff we like. So these studios hopefully get the point. I'll circle that into a topic that's going to come up later in a couple of spots. I want to talk a little bit about Assassin's Creed and Star Wars Outlaws, hopefully for the final time on both of those. I think those stories have just about, like, their shock value has run out. Their predictability has made itself paramount and well known. Basically everything people figured about both of those titles has come to pass, you know, with one of them releasing and one of them being pushed back into February 25. So we got that. I got a little bit of Scream 7 news that I'm probably going to talk about near the end of the show. It's not much going on. The big headline there is they have a legacy star coming back, and they've slated a date in, I think, February, not Friday the 13th though. I might have gone for that, you know, even though it's not particularly on brand for Ghostface and company over there at the Scream movies, but still, it's Friday the 13th, dude. Like, if that date's out there for a horror flick and you've got a horror flick, like, dude, lock it in. Like, pencil that shit in. Like, that's seems like a no-brainer to me. But come along for the ride. Much easier to have a conversation when people are peppering comments and things like that. I'm going to go ahead and bring them up because King Z pointed it out to me last week that I missed all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to endeavor not to do that. I do have them open. So, you know, comment all along, pitch a topic or ask questions, do whatever you got to do. But without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and dip into, here we go. We're going to keep it simple tonight. I'm going to go Twin Robot review because, guys, I saw both of these over the last 8 days or whichever, and I have a couple of takes that I wanted to get out. I was going to do separate videos, but work kind of got in the way. I didn't have enough time to gather the clips, and, you know, not that I make the best editing choices, creative choices, and clipage and all that other stuff, but I try. So I figure I'll just get my thoughts out with you guys, and you guys can let me know what you thought of each of these movies in turn as we go through them. Let me hit Transformers 1 first, because this is the one. I don't know what happened with this movie, man. I remember we were starting to see trailers for this coming out over the summer. right? Or I mean, over the spring into the summer. And it was on King Z. It was on both of our lists. It was on both of our hype for 2024 lists. I think we did that video very early January or very late December of last year. We are kind of like looking ahead for a calendar year to see what might tickle our fancies, things we might want to see that aren't the usual stuff that we hope that's going to be good, like Star Wars that comes out and then disappoints us. So Transformers 1 popped up. And I think we only had really like a title card. I don't remember if we knew it was an animated feature straight away. And I said, "Oh, all right. I mean, yeah, I'm down for robots again. We could hit up some robots." And then we get the trailer, and it's obviously animated. And I go, "Oh man, oh, this doesn't look like it's for me. I'll probably take Winter Wolf Pup. He's 8. He might be into it. I mean, he didn't grow up with Transformers. They were never really his thing, but it's robots punching each other and blasting. It might be kind of cool for him to see. He might be down. I don't know." And coming off of some of the weaker live action films, like I get some people like Bumblebee. All right, Bumblebee was okay. But the last couple of live action Transformers movies in the proper timeline, I wouldn't call it the prime timeline or anything. There's some pun involved there. I don't want to mix that up. But The Last Night, wasn't really down for that. Rise of the Beast was okay. It wasn't really the Dinobots I wanted. But I get they were tying into a more recent cartoon that long since had not been on my radar, at the ripe old age of 22. Now I'm just playing. But Transformers 1, man, I liked it. I liked it a lot, actually. I think if I were to give it a solo review, I'd have probably given it a solid 7.5, 8. I know that's kind of a lukewarm number to give an average movie, but if you think about that 8 scale, that 10 scale, I mean, if 10's perfect and 1 is nothing, it's all about hitting the 10 points is a bell curve. It's not like a scholastic grade like we used to do in the States here, where like a 65 is a D and not good enough for most parents. Like if you hit that 5, 6, 7 out of 10 when we're talking movies, like that's the definition of average. Like I'm okay with giving lots of movies, credit and giving them a nod here and there for being only a 6.5, a 7, 7.5. Because we should reserve those 8s, 9s, and 10s for the absolute bangers of our time that actually mean something on a creative level, that resonate on a personal level. But for everything else, everything in between, we've got the 6s and 7s. So I would put Transformers 1 a notch above that. It wasn't a particularly complicated story. Obviously, it was geared to much younger kids, at least as the marketing led on. But I'll talk about that in a second. The marketing did this movie no favors. I'll get to that for sure. But the story was pretty simple. It's a setup. It's a reimagining or a reboot, a new setup or a new timeline. I think it might tie into a comic that's coming out or recently came out. I'm not sure. I have to go back and look at that. But it sets up a younger Optimus Prime and a younger Megatron who are both they're robots without the ability to transform. They basically work in an energon mine. They're the proles. They're proletariat transformers. They're the working class, and they're brought up on a legend of Sentinel Prime and the other primes that fought a big war against an enemy that had them beat to the bag until the war turned, and now everything's about just moving society forward. Except they do this at the behest of the elites who make them work in the mine. So there's some commentary in there if you scratch just a little bit beneath the surface. It's definitely still kid friendly. I'll say that. Kid friendly, no woke detected in it. It's not like they're giving any kind of anti-capitalist railing. That's not how that's going down. But it's a story about how these two get wrapped up in trying to ascend from their station and find a better life for themselves. Along the way, some secrets are revealed, some lies are uncovered. And then you get your big robot, throw down at the end. But along the way, you get a couple of really good set pieces. One really cool race sequence, which I was in the trailer. You guys might have seen that, where Optimus and Megatron almost win when they shouldn't have been able to because they couldn't transform. They had to be slick and use some other techniques to get to a placing spot. But it was fun. It was loud. It had all the beat 'em up stuff robots want, but it was also surprisingly heartfelt. Core in this story is Megatron's relationship. He's D16 and Optimus Prime, who's Orion Pax, until they're both given the ability to transform after kind of demonstrating their worth by going on kind of the forbidden journey, the hero's journey, the quest, and they end up with the ability graced to them to transform. And it comes right around the same time that everything is revealed. Their entire world is revealed as being a lie, and that they're being manipulated and compelled to work for things that aren't in their best interest. This does not sit well with Megatron at all. And it makes for a very interesting character, some very interesting character work for the villain in the future. Because by the end of the movie, this isn't a spoiler. The movie's been out, whatever. Go check it out. I highly advise it anyway. When D16 becomes Megatron and can't cope with the understanding that he'd been lied to, like he snaps and he becomes the villain we all kind of know him as being. So it kind of fleshed out some legit backstory, and it makes for a one particularly a heartfelt, kind of crushing moment at the end where you realize he and Optimus Prime, now Optimus Prime, can no longer be the brothers in arms that they had been throughout their lifetime and into the point of the movie where it starts. And it does kind of, it's kind of a gut punch, you know. It kind of goes down unforgivingly as it happens, but it was solid. It was interesting to see Megatron go from somebody that believed in the party, or you know, trusted his leader's word that everything was working towards a better tomorrow for all Transformers, all robots. I'm like, okay, well, I think some of us that are in a certain age group, we can understand exactly what that kind of feels like. If you work in a couple of particular industries coming off the pandemic, you know exactly what trust the science feels like. But I'm not getting sidetracked by that. We're not here for that. But it was nice to see that kind of development, that kind of thought put into the main antagonist in the film, or who becomes the main antagonist near the end, running it side by side with Optimus Prime, who was always Orion Pax before he's Optimus Prime, was always the more optimistic one. He believed in the stories. He was believing in the same legends that Megatron believed in, but he always wanted to be more than like an Energon miner. He wanted the next bump up. He wanted to prove he could be something. That was kind of core to his makeup, where Megatron was just more happily being the worker bee. So it was interesting watching them both grow into their new roles. And I thought that was something cool. It's an example of good character development and good writing that we can put in a kid's movie and then not be disappointed when it's just shoot 'em up, bang 'em up, movies over, explosions, or that it's not filled with ideology, you know, the current day American political nonsense. Like it's neither of those two things. Here's the rub for Transformers 1. The marketing did this movie no favors. This movie's story is every bit as nuanced or complex as your standard bog action flick. Like I said, with a little bit better character development. Optimus Prime and Megatron are not kids. They're not teenagers. They're working adults in this movie, but the trailers, for some reason, in their infinite wisdom, I guess, played both of them off like they were like dude bro, like late teens, early college age, just like nitwits, you know, nitwits if I'm being polite. And that was neither of their characters in this movie. Like the movie takes itself very seriously. It has a couple of jokes. Bumblebee wait, was it Bumblebee? I don't remember if it was. Yeah, it was Bumblebee. Shit, I almost forgot. Has a couple of jokes, recurring kind of gags that went along, and those were okay because they were used for levity when levity was called for. It didn't MCU all of kind of like the emotional stuff when it came up, especially at the end, like when a moment needed to sit and you needed to be impacted and, you know, sitting in your seat and be like, oh man, that sucked. Oh man. Like that was it. You know, I'll give you the one spoiler. They do set up a kind of death of Optimus Prime scene that hits fairly hard. It hits nowhere like Transformers 89. Like we were with bunch of us parents brought a bunch of the littles, and you know, they weren't exactly balling out. Like I remember in 89, kids balling out. People were leaving when Optimus Prime died. It didn't hit quite like that, I feel like. But these kids didn't grow up with Transformer cartoons on the regular that any of them are watching now. Like those recent animated series that people keep bringing up to me. Like I don't know that they were as popular, even though there's more of them and it seems more saturated. I don't know if it's just not as prevalent like the Transformers stuff that it might have been, you know, X number of decades ago. That said, there's plenty in this movie, not just for the kids, for the grown-ups, for the guys that saw 89. They make a reference to the original theme song from the movie, You've Got the Touch. It was kind of funny. The Alita character says to Orion Pax, you have neither the touch nor the power. That was kind of funny. Definitely got some snickers from the dads in the audience. That was nice. They also make a couple of other, they made a GoBots reference, which for those of you not versed in 80s stuff, you miss out on that altogether. That's a good reference for a Transformers movie. I wish that came up a little bit more. That was like discount, like beyond Temu, beyond Wish, beyond Walmart version of Transformers from back in the day. It was the one your parents got you when money was a little tight and you really wanted that like die cast aluminum Optimus Prime, but you didn't. You got the crappy plastic one that didn't really transform. It just kind of folded its limbs in, and that became the cut. Yeah, it was bad. GoBots kind of suck. But there were references there. It was pretty heartfelt, good story, good messaging about never giving up, about honoring your friends, about doing the right thing, and about achieving as much as you can and becoming who you are. So that was pretty solid. Like I said, it's an easy 7.5 out of 8. Marketing did this no favors. It's getting dunked on at the box office, which sucks because there's an obvious good setup for a sequel here now that Orion Pax has become Optimus Prime, D16 has become Megatron, and they're very much split in the factions that they have. Optimus is rebuilding the part of Cybertron. There's a city, I don't remember the name, their capital, that kind of got ruined at the end a little bit. He's rebuilding that and taking the leadership role because he's taken the leadership of Matrix. And Megatron kind of effed off, took Starscream and some of the others that'll become the Decepticons. That's actually a post, what do you call it, like a stinger scene, post-credit trailer, whatever they call it. You know what I mean? After the credits, they got a little scene there that sets up Megatron really becoming Megatron, which was kind of dope. So that was that. So let me move on to Wild Robot. Wild Robot might be the best movie I've seen all year, period. This movie was so much better than I anticipated it being that I'm kind of surprised. I had no idea this is based on a book series. Apparently there's 3 books in this set. They're a couple of 100 pages long each. They're not for littles, it's probably like middle grade, 4th, 5th, 6th, something like that. Because there are some there's some pictures in it, things like that. Nothing common. It's not a graphic novel, like it's a legit novel that was written there. But this is another one. It's got a very simple setup of a story, and I think this is the strength of each of these films, respectively. The Wild Robot is the story about Roz, a robot who, while being shipped, she's like a service robot. Like she can do anything. She can do any task she's assigned, but she's like a domestic robot. She can do cleaning, she can cook, guard duty, moving, like assembly, moving things, whatever you need done, Roz can do. She's being shipped to wherever she's supposed to go, but a shipwreck leaves her stranded on an island somewhere. We know it's on Earth, but they never they don't say Earth. But we see shots of what you can presumably realistically assume is the Golden Gate Bridge near the end of the movie, submerged underwater. So this is like a far future post-apocalyptic situation, but humanity has recovered from that event because there are cities that we see later with humans in them. Like there's some high-tech stuff. So we know we made it through it. But Roz never gets where she needs to go. She gets shipwrecked on an island. Through the events of the first couple of scenes, she takes an egg with her because she's landed on a nest, which is kind of grotesque. There's a lot of dark humor in this movie up front. She's trying to piece together like the shell pieces like a jigsaw puzzle, which kind of, it's played for laughs, but dude, it's morbid. It is. I was saying to one of the parents that we had gone with, this really legit feels like old school, like an old Tim Burton 80s animated flick, because there's a lot of dark humor in the movie, but it's layered well, like a classic Shrek movie. Like it's there for the grown-ups, but the kids will just laugh la-di-da, and they'll have their chuckles, and you don't need to explain the deeper meaning of any of these kind of things. And it's worth pointing out that the Wild Robot is a DreamWorks movie, and I guess it was headed and the script was adapted by somebody that's a former employee of Disney. So that's a dunking right there. This could have been under their banner if they had just played their cards right, I guess. But Roz takes an egg to a gosling and has to raise said gosling after she fails to communicate hilariously with any of the animals on the island, obviously. After she runs through she figures it out, and she runs through a set of programs she has that allows her to translate animal sounds into the dialogue we hear, which makes for a much easier movie to watch, because I didn't want to hear like skunks chirping and like birds and insects clicking for like 90 minutes. I was good with that. So I was happy when people started speaking language. That was fun. She takes Brightbill, and she has to raise Brightbill to swim, to fly. There was 3 things she had to do: was swim, fly, and I don't know. She had 3 objectives. Now I feel like an idiot that I can't remember what the 3 were. Give me the book notes quick. She had basically to raise this bird to get him to fly off the island and migrate with the others by winter, so he would survive, because there's no birds on the island. Like they migrate to where it's warm. So what you get here is a bunch of concepts throughout the entire movie, all wrapped up in a nice little 90-minute, 100-minute kind of package. We get themes of motherhood. We get coming of age themes of Brightbill, because this takes place over his lifetime. Like, he goes from gosling to like adolescent, but they do like a time lapse thing, and you can see it very cleverly done. So you're not dragged through the unimportant parts. We get bits of, like I said, the coming of age. We get bits of what it looks like to be a misunderstood outsider, because at first none of the animals trust Roz. They call her the monster, because she kind of psycho tries to like get them all to give her tasks at the beginning, which was kind of funny. But she's never played for a sucker. The character is treated respectfully by the film and goes about her existence in the movie, earning her place on the island and earning people's respect, which was kind of nice. We get some stuff about community and working together, which has a big impact on the end of the movie. I won't spoil that for you either. But in a lot of ways, it's a great movie for parents to see with their kids, especially kids in what I assume is the target bracket. Your 8s, 9s, 10s, maybe even 11s or 12s. The kids that might be reading like a 300-page book, like I said, because there's themes that pop when they're always there in the movie, but they lay them on heavy at the end, and they really drive their point home about the lengths that good parents will go to take care of their kids. And there's a particular part at the end of the movie. The soundtrack is on point. Like, when that score rises and it looked like it's all about to hit the fan, screw it. I'm gonna give you guys a spoiler on this one. They pull the group move, man. Like, you get to the end of this movie and Brightbill's gone to save Roz because her factory has come to collect her, because she's now considered defective because she has no task and she's on an island where there's no humans. So they don't understand where her place could be. So they want to reprogram her and put her back into circulation doing something else. Brightbill flies up onto the ship that's taken her after a brief standoff battle, which was pretty dope. But he hurts his wing on the way up, and we see that. So when the ship is inevitably disabled by the other animals and starts to go down, Brightbill panics and says, I can't fly. Like, my wing. Dude, Roz, without hesitation, I'm going to get choked up here. This is going to happen. It happened when I was talking about this when we got out the theater, right? Roz is looking out of the cargo door of the flaming, like, spaceship at the ground, like 75 miles below. And without hesitation, she tears out her battery core, throws it away. And Brightbill's like, wait, whoa, your battery, you need that. Dude, this GD robot puts the bird in the chest and locks it up and says, I have everything I need. And then I Am Groot's herself out of the damn plane, to the safe crash landing below. You get a DreamWorks ending, thankfully. But damn if that didn't hit, because every good parent listening in here, every good parent out there across the world, man, we all know what that feels like. Dude, without hesitation, yank, yeet, bird in. And that's after, of course, she got the earful nonsense of course, this stupid duck, goose, whatever it was, being like, you're not my real mom. You don't know. That happened a little earlier, but still, every parent knows what that feels like. So it was slapping good, man. And again, I think this one, the marketing for it, I think like was fine. It had good trailers. We saw trailers for this months ago, probably late spring again. And right off the rip, my son was interested in seeing it. He had never read this book. This isn't an age bracket of books he'd be reading in school. I'd never come across this. This is a newish novel. I didn't read this in school, obviously, So we had already put a pencil in to check this out because we had seen the trailer and it looked good, because it gives you a couple of really good quips where when the robots come back to get Roz and to bring her back to, wherever she needed to go, there was a spot where, I don't even remember what the setup was, but like it's all the armed robots that come to get her, and it's Roz with all the animals behind her, and they sling some insult at her, and I wish I could remember what it was. Like there's no place for you here. You're not an animal or something. You're not a wild animal. And she says something like, no, I'm a wild robot. And then lets out like the wolf howl to like deafen the theater in X Plus. And like they run into battle. They even managed. I said this when I got home, man. I said they even managed at the end point, like when all the animals came to her rescue. I swear, and I'll go to my grave saying this, man. They legit set up that 360-degree panoramic Avengers Assembled shot from the original Avengers movie. And then they completed it with the bear character, I think his name was Thorn, roaring like the Hulk. And then they divided up to like to go to battle mode. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen this movie before. It was called The Avengers in like 2012. And I'm like, but it worked. It hit because unlike other movies, and I think this is what I think a lot of other movies, especially like sequels, reboots, or things that like ape other people's work, right? This is what they get wrong. They think they can have that moment unearned. You know what I'm saying? They think that if you paid your $15 and you sat your butt down in the theater seat, or you're watching on HBO Max, Disney Plus, whatever, they think that just because you're there, that like they've already won, and that there was no work for them to do. You know, they think that, but you're already there because it said Star Wars or Star Trek on it. And I'm like, no, I'm here because I wanted to see what you could do. So you just can't slap any old thing on the screen, make it look like something I've liked from previous movie, show, game, book, graphic novel, song, whatever, versions, adaptations, similar concepts, and think you get the same response out of me because you aped somebody else. Like, no, you still have to earn that along the way through the movie. It's why something like Rings of Power doesn't work. You know, they think that because they slap the Tolkien badge on it and things look like Middle Earth, that everything they do then translates into the 2-decade-long adoration, fan infatuation, obsession with like the Fellowship trilogy. And I'm like, bro, that's just not how it's done, man. Like, you still have to put in the paces and make these characters likable. Like, you can't just stick rubber ears on someone and be like, all right, that one's Legolas, and all right, this hairy foot one over here, that's Frodo. I'm like, dude, I guarantee you in 20 years, no one's talking about Nori and the other one. I don't remember her name. I don't care. I'm not watching season 2. No one's referencing anything that way, the same way they do where they reference Sam and Frodo, you know, with Sam's speech to Frodo about, you know, all that's green and good in the world and it's worth fighting for and all that stuff. Or, you know, or Frodo's talk with Gandalf in the cave. You know, I've never wished the ring never came to me. So do all who live to see such times, yada, yada. No one's talking about Rings of Power like that in 10 years. No one's talking about that in 5 years. They didn't earn that level of respect and adoration. The Wild Robot hits every effing switch along the way to get that done. You feel for Roz because she's a stranger in an unknown land that has to learn her way, that needs to find her purpose. We all know what that feels like. That's obvious. We all know what that feels like. You know, when we're Bright Bill, we know what it feels like to be the new kid, or to be out of place, to be the outsider looking in, to go through the nonsense you go through when you hit adolescence, and like you're thinking all stupid and you think you know everything, but you know you don't know everything and you can't do anything. We get that. Hell, we even understand a lot of the side characters in this movie too. You know, Fink, the fox, is played as he's kind of like a sleazebag at first. Like he threatens. It's more of that morbid humor that doesn't play out. He's always looking to eat Bright Bill early until he becomes like a adolescent, you know, goose or whatever. But he hits a point where that character gets enough development too, and he goes from the fox that was going to eat the gosling because he's, you know, just likes to eat geese, to when the other geese show up and are kind of dicks to Bright Bill. Like, he threatens them flat out. He's like, I'll see you at dinner. Trust me, I'll be back. And he gets like the little bro, like he has to get pulled away, you know, let me at him, like that thing. Like, there's that moment. So that character gets development, and we learn kind of in a roundabout way that he's always been alone and that he's never had a friend. So when Roz is going through the end of the movie for her, like it hits you on behalf of him. You know, there's a couple of other characters that I wish they had pumped a little bit more development into too. Thunderclaw, the owl that teaches Bright Bill to fly like the others, even though he's structurally, his wings are a little different. You know, Thunderclaw reminds them there's nothing they can do that you can't, like fly like you. And that's a message that gets repeated like throughout the movie is no, just be your best you. You'll get it done. Like, you have what you need. You just have to like practice, work. And they have that. I almost forgot all about that scene. Like, a lot of these movies now, these kids' movies, the message is always, you've always had what you needed to be successful inside of you. But they never show you that person working to develop the what's inside of you part. It's just supposed to automatically happen for them. And this movie does it better. This movie shows Bright Bill struggling, exercising, working, getting stronger. And they show the pace is slow, it's arduous, it's frustrating. It's frustrating for Roz, who sees Bright Bill not be able to do certain things, but together they overcome. Together they plan different ways they can improve his flight so they can improve his chances of joining the migration to get out. So it's very, both of these movies have some 80s styling with the messaging and how they put it across. It's just because you had it in you all along. Like, unless you're that star-born, charmed life living son of a gun, like, most of us do have to work to develop the talents we have. I tell friends all the time that are about to embark on writing projects. And King Z and I do this for each other routinely, especially as we both started getting into writing and screenwriting, things like that. Like, friends that embark on these creative journeys, musicians too, like people playing instruments, people singing, people playing sports. Like, this is, we just happen to write. This is our thing. Maybe you've got the best story idea in your mind. You've got the greatest story never told and you got to get it out. You still have to get it out. And just because you have that idea doesn't mean you're ready to put down 400 pages on your first go. Like, you need to build into that, and it's not easy. And nobody just sits down and throws out a 400-page epic book that gets turned into like the next Harry Potter. Hell, the next Harry Potter wasn't even the next Harry Potter. Like, it took Rowling years to get that published, and she didn't just sit down at her kitchen table in a weekend and like limitless out 500 pages for the Sorcerer's Stone. That's not how that works. So it always feels like cheating in these kids movies where like the mentor character shows up and it's like, oh my God, you had it in you all along. You just had to let it out. Like, that's cute. Like, I guess so. And that might be good for like 4-year-olds, like the littlest littles. But when you're getting into that adolescent coming of age kind of story, like, nah, bro, it's nut cutting time at that point, man. If there's something you want, you go for it. And you go for it with everything you have, but no one's going to hand it to you. It's nothing. Anything worth having doesn't come easy, and it takes effort. You know what I mean? It just doesn't. So if there's a goal you have, one of the things we tell people in behavioral health all the time, that's my background, that's what we do, is you have SMART goals. You make goals small, manageable, attainable, reasonable, and you put them on a timeline. So if you want to write a book, if you got the next great novel in you, great. Develop that. Write down your characters. Get a little outline guy. I know King Z hates outline. He's more of a pantser, as we call him. I'm a plotter. He's a pantser. Dude, get those ideas out, but then maybe write a short story. You know what I mean? Write like a one pager. Dude, write microfiction. Like, micro flash fiction's a thing out there, man, where you got like a 250 word limit. There's challenge subreddits on out there where it's like 7-letter. And 2-sentence horror was one of my favorites from back in the day. Write a horror story in 2 sentences. It's wild what people come up with. It's a great way to practice. It gets the creative juices flowing. That's some fun stuff. I pat myself on the back, but they had what was it, super short, scary stories on Reddit. I don't know. I won a contest on there a few years ago. It was pretty dope. It was a Christmas horror themed story. It's got the award. It's pretty slapping. But that's neither here nor there. Dude, Wild Robot, 9 for me. I thought it was slim, and all the kids we brought to see it, they all were talking about it afterwards. They all were talking about different emotional beats in the movie afterwards, which I thought was great. It was really good to have those conversations with the kids as we were heading back to like cars and kind of hanging out in the lobby after the movie about how, I was sad when this happened. I thought it was great that Bright Bill went back for this. I thought it was great that all the animals came together after they had turned on each other when things were ugly. Because again, it's another bit of understandable, relatable adult stuff but packaged down for kids to get, and so it was nice to see that all the kids we were with, there's probably 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, I think. I don't know, we might have left one there, but they were all on board for talking about that. And that's all really that I wanted. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted coming out, as I didn't want this to be something my son saw once and just filed it under, okay, I saw that movie. Like, we're 4 days removed from it, and he was at the bus stop today still asking me what my favorite part of the Wild Robot was. I was like, dude, it was Roz. Roz being like an unfaltering, imperfect parent is something I think if you're there in your life, you get exactly what that means. Wild Robot, easy 9. Thank you, Roz. Yeah. So let me just been talking for like 34 straight minutes here. If anybody's lurking out there and wants to talk Wild Robot or Transformers 1, now's your shot. Both slapping good. I feel like the release schedule for both of them didn't do him any favors though. Like both of these, I think would have played better over the summer. I think Back to School completely destroyed half destroyed Transformers 1, and then a more interesting, probably for most parents, the moms out there in particular, I'm not trying to be sexist, it's just how it is. It's like a 90-10 split on who's interested in Transformers, men to women. I think the moms are much more likely to have picked up this book for a summer reading situation and been willing to bring the kids over something like Transformers 1. I think Transformers 1 could have been a banger in like late July, early August, and then the last weekend before school, the Wild Robot could have dominated a little bit better because it's also not doing too well in the theater. But I have a feeling that the Wild Robot is going to go the same route as Elementals did for Disney a few years ago, where it just stuck around. You know, like it didn't come and go. It'll have legs, so I think the word of mouth is going to, I think, sail this movie into profitability. And I think Transformers 1 is done for. It got completely demolished. I think it had something like a 70% drop between weekends. So I'd check them both out when they hit streaming. They're both worth your time. But I want to dip over to, before I run out of complete time, because I realize we just went on a tangent with the Twin Robot review. Switching gears, going now grown up stuff. Now we're going to go grown up mode here. I might have to swear a little bit. Penguin continues to dominate on HBO Max. Seems like everybody's watching this show. The only people that don't seem to like it are critics. Shocked, not shocked. Even people that didn't particularly enjoy the Batman movie with Pattinson from a couple years ago seem to be enjoying this show on whole. Of course, not everybody's obligated to like this. Dude, you're not obligated to like anything you don't want. And don't let them tell you different. That's the important part here, folks. The important part here is that you get to enjoy what you want to enjoy. I get to enjoy what I want to enjoy. And we can both smack talk about the other guys' things that they didn't enjoy, but you don't need to personally attack anybody over. I'll make my Battinson jokes, but I'm not gonna, try to get you canceled if you have an opinion on something I don't like. But I don't think any of that's applying to this show. I think that the Penguin by itself is a pretty good mob drama. We get to see some complexity, some nuance, a little bit of subtlety. The character work on this show is pretty damn good. The two you're going to hear people talking about all week, if you're brave enough to read up on the show or watch videos on YouTube or whatever, because you're not afraid of spoilers. And I don't think there's not really anything. What was the big spoilerific thing from episode 2? And, I don't even want, if I head down that road, I'll accidentally blurt it out. I'm going to leave that stuff out because I want more people to see this show. It's going to be another interesting case study, taking a look at comps between viewership, because I think we can run this nicely against something like Agatha All Along. Oh shit, episode 4 that comes out tonight. That's already probably over and done with. I have to check that after the show. I like running shows side by side because it allows people a better grasp on what viewership actually looks like and what's considered successful and what's not. I'm willing to bet that there's a similar number of viewers or an increase in Penguin between week 1 and 2. We know for a fact that that's not the case with Agatha, and it wasn't the case with The Acolyte. It wasn't the case with Rings of Power either. That's just on a precipitous and steady decline week to week. But the Penguin, again, gives us Colin Farrell as, the titular character. On this one, he is Oswald Cobble. I think they shorten his name. Characters call him Oz. His nickname that he doesn't like is Penguin. That's kind of what the mob bosses yank him. They call him that. But we get a very interesting character here. It occurred to me while driving out today that this character has got some Walter White in him. I think there's a comparison there too. That you like the character because you like the character. You don't like the person. Oz is kind of a scumbag. He's done some dirty stuff. He's duplicitous. He has his reasons for duplicity, but he's still a scumbag. He's still prone to violence. He's got some people he supports, and that's nice. It offsets. And that's what kind of reminds me of the Walter White situation. Like he says the same line throughout the entire run of Breaking Bad. I've done this for my family. And he says it enough until like in season 5 or 6, whatever the end is, Skylar basically says, don't say that again. It might have been that a year ago or whatever, but now it's for you. you know, and I can see somebody telling Oz something like that in the Penguin sooner or later on this show, because what they've done so far is show that he's trying to play chess with two mob families, but he's impulsive and will probably wind up making checkers like moves at some point instead of chess moves. Everything he's done so far has worked out, but I think what they're building to is he's going to get somebody close to him killed, and then he's going to start suffering, like, and then the repercussions are going to happen for him as a character. Like, it's going to put him on a path to like insanity kind of thing. I think they hinted at this in episode 2, where mistakes are made and then audibles are called. And for those of you that don't do American football, and audibles, when you change a play on the fly, he's got to change course after he kind of lays out what he thinks is a good plan in a situation, but then somebody else can't come through on their end and execute. So he has to change what he does, and it gets a former, albeit briefly, ally killed. And then the fallout from that kind of snowballs into getting another innocent person killed, like kind of gruesomely too, and like almost unexpectedly. So you see that, and it's like he doesn't care. Like, he in the first episode, he was okay with like some random, I think it was a teenager, like some random teenager getting shot in the name of a lie that Oz told to keep his own ass alive, which is some gangster shit. Like, that's what he should do. But I don't think anybody's walking away. Like, he's not an anti-hero. You know what I mean? Like, he's very much a villain and just the main character of his show. He's not the Punisher. He's not going to become Daredevil. He's not Spawn. You know, where like he may say he has good intentions, but you know, road to hell, paved in gold, like that whole thing. It's going to apply at some point here, you know, and he's going to get, I think, and because like the two people that got killed in this episode were nobodies to him in a way, like really. But I think they've already laid out ties to a couple of other characters that we know mean something to him. And I think they're going to steadily increase until one key death. If there's 8 episodes, I'm calling the death in episode 6 is when it'll pop off, and then we'll go from there and see. But I want to talk about the episode, but I wanted to talk about it with King Z, but I know he's probably behind on the view. And I don't want to spoil it because it just, you know, actually it came out like Sunday. That's what I do, some generals. Like it picks up, and they're dealing with the funeral of Alberto Falcone. From episode 1, of course, Oz blew his ass away without question, which was kind of epic. We see the fallout of the end of episode 1, where Alberto's body was in the car, and he had Oz had scratched payback on the ceiling, and they crashed it into his family's house, basically trying to implicate another mob family with doing it, all in like the name of him kind of climbing a power ladder on one side or the other. He visits that family's boss, who's locked up at Blackgate, and the boss is like, yeah, get your ass out of here. You think we're going to fall for that? We think you're going to let you bring that kind of shit down on me, and yada, yada. And again, we see Oz manipulate people to the best of his ability to kind of get what he wants and survive out of the situation. It's creepy when it happens, because it's like he never at this point intimidates anybody above his station. Like, he knows better. Even guys that he could obviously physically demolish or just gun down like Alberto, like the situations Oz finds himself in don't lend themselves with the family to being able to do that. So he has to continually do the thing he told Sophia that he does, or he told Sophia, he told Vic that he did in episode 1. You know, I make myself look small around these people because it makes them feel better. And then they don't know what I'm capable of. And then I can still get what I want later. So he does that throughout the episode here, even as he has to adjust the moves he wants to make on the fly. There's a section of the episode where he needs his new driver, Vic, the kid that he didn't kill in episode 1. I still think Vic is on the line here. They have a scene in this episode where basically lays that out. I won't ruin the details. It was chilling. He needs Vic to plant evidence that he had on one of the Falcone crime family's elder members that would implicate him in some shit he shouldn't have been doing. but Vic can't pull it off. I won't. Again, I'm just gonna keep saying that. I won't ruin the deets. You guys can go check it out. But that lack of action changed. It was like a domino fall. It was butterfly effect. Every decision Oz had planned out that he was going to make could not work because Vic couldn't plant the evidence that he had to plant. So all the audibles he had to call resulted in 2 other people dying, and then him having to deal with the aftermath of that. And it was funny because the evidence that he had that he was going to give went through something like 3 different people he wanted to give it to, but each one of those avenues was like cut, and he had to constantly adjust and constantly adapt and constantly like reconfigure his thoughts about what he could do to stay one step ahead. And that's interesting because again, this isn't, at this point, this show is doing its best to stay as grounded and kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I think maybe grounded is the best word, man. Like they're never, somebody said, oh, I can't wait till he busts out the umbrella with the machine gun. I do. The only way you're getting an umbrella with the machine gun in this show is if he has an umbrella in one hand and hides the Uzi behind the other hand. Like that's it. Like you're not getting the umbrella. You're not getting the glider. You're not getting that. Stop it. Stop right there. No chance. But I like where this character's going. The other character I mentioned on the show, and everybody else's too, because I think we're all in agreement. It's Sophia Falcone. This is an example of writing a strong female. It's so cliched, man. If you guys spend 10 seconds on YouTube, you get to hear a lot of other better channels go over this kind of stuff, but I appreciate anybody checking in. Sophia Falcone is a strong female character that's on an arc that has a personality that through good writing, direction, and acting is as intimidating as any other character I've ever seen in a crime drama. Like she can do this bug-eyed, wild-eyed, psycho bitch look. And like, I don't know, I probably got 140 pounds on her. And if I actually didn't have the EDC on hand, I'd be like, I wouldn't mess with this chick. Like she'd probably wait until I turned my back. And then she'd choke me out with like piano wire. And like, that'd be it. Like we know she's psycho. She spent time in Arkham on this show, you know, with like a confirmed body count. Like society calls her the hangman. There's a great scene at her brother's funeral. This is some cold-blooded shit. They're like, people are protesting her at her brother's funeral. Like she's just up in a window on a porch somewhere smoking. And like, there's a crowd of people with signs that say, send the hangman back. And like, that's her, like, that's her serial killer nickname is the hangman. And they're like, no, send her back. Hell no, send her back. Whatever they're saying. And when she has to get into it with Oz or with her bodyguard, Castillo, or with the other family members, like the top, like the bosses, like they all crap on her because she's younger and she's a woman for sure. But like anybody that's at her level or lower, like they get it. Like they're not underestimating her. They fear her. They know she's prone to violence and what she says goes. But you know what she's not doing? She's not trading fists with her bodyguards that are former military, that are 6'4", 250, you know, wearing body armor. She's not, you know, Aeon fluxing any of these guys with like a Hurricane Rana through the drywall. Like, no, she's just like a pretty princess mob boss, princess daughter. But she's decided, again, this is an arc. This is what makes this show great. She's decided by the end of episode 2 that she's no longer going to let the family force her to her knees, that she's going to take what she wants. And she's going to pursue all avenues to uncover who actually, and she doesn't know, to uncover her brother's murderer. Like she's going to go do what she has to do. They play a little weird with a couple like the avenues that she goes, where she hires out a former kind of corrupt police detective who worked for her dad. He's obviously strung out on their drug. What's the drug in the show? Drops, because the guy uses eye drops. 50. He's almost kind of like a cartoon character though. Like he actually steals a patient out of a hospital that's hooked up on like IVs. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know how that works, but whatever, but it happened. So, I mean, but again, the rest of the show is so entertaining that they're allowed to do that. And we laugh about it. And it's not something stupid like other shows where fire burns down stone-based structures. You know, it's not fire in space. It's not a show that's playing itself off as being like a content expert on something and then doing all of it wrong. So you allow that. We call that suspension of disbelief. It's a good thing. It's a necessary thing in fiction. So this show has earned that through the strength of its writing, its acting, its directing, its production value is through the roof. Wherever they're filming, looks like Gotham to me. Good enough, you know. Like it looks like whenever they get into like the seedier side of town, it's all hazy neon. It's boxes and garbage stacked up under like the L train, stuff like that. So it feels legit. It feels authentic. So that's dude, I'm not doing ratings episode to episode because I'm just enjoying it. I think this show is off to a really good start. I said that about House of the Dragon season 2, also on Max, and then that petered out and went nowhere as they got to the last 2, maybe even 3 episodes. I don't remember. Haven't gone back to watch House of the Dragon. That says something. When Game of Thrones, when shows are good, like Game of Thrones or like early Walking Dead, I go back and I watch an episode, 2 or 3 times in a season just to keep up because when things get complicated, there's zillions of characters. You don't want to get anything wrong. You don't want to cross lines. So haven't gone back to watch House of the Dragon. I could go back. I could conceivably see myself watching the Penguin again when we get King Z back up and running because I'd just love to get that back and forth with him because he picks up so much stuff that I don't pick up. Like I pick up the gross reactionary stuff to like stuff that just pisses me right off. But King Z's got a really good eye for breaking down the here and what's. He's really good at that. But yeah, that's Penguin. That's Sunday nights at 9 Eastern on Max. I recommend you guys check that out. All right, I think we got time for one more. What do we want to do? Do we want to we go rapid fire? We can go rapid fire on that. Hold on, let me remove that. I'm still learning how to do the setups here, so I think I'm gonna go screen share. I'm gonna talk about one that I was excited for because I didn't think this was happening. Here we go. Deadline, courtesy of Deadline. Scream 7 sets winter 2026 theatrical release date. I had heard that it was set to February. I mean, I guess that counts technically as winter because it is. Oh, yeah, there it is. Disney has it on. Oh, that's what I was saying earlier, that February 13th Disney has on hold for a Marvel Studios movie. Listen, Scream 7, go for the throat. All right. Hit these guys on Friday the 13th. You've earned it. Okay, dude, screw Marvel. They're not going to put anything out good on that date anyway. But I didn't even know that Scream 7 was a thing. Like I thought wasn't it that Jenna Ortega walked, if I remember right, over, it was like a contract dispute, same way that they missed out on having Nev Campbell be there for the restart back in, was it Scream 5 or whatever. Like it was like a money situation and Jenna walked. She's got other stuff she can do anyway. So it was big sad, but they were angling towards the sister character. I can't remember the character's name, but it was played by Melissa Barrera, who was Billy's daughter, had some psycho in her. The end of Scream 6 seemed to indicate that there might be some kind of Tommy Jarvis potential Tommy Jarvis kind of set up like from Friday the 13th, where maybe she'd be next and she'd be Ghostface for like the big twisteroo. And that's probably not going anywhere, obviously, because they let her go over some political differences from like a year ago. But the story for Scream 7, I guess it's kind of twofold for me, is they said they have Nev Campbell back on board, which is pretty slapping, probably costing them a bag of money. I know people love her. They love Courtney Cox. They love David Arquette. Sadly, Deputy Dude, there's no way he's coming back for the next one. They did my boy dirty in Scream 6. I'm never going to get over a 95-pound woman double gutting him from like, belly button to like chin with a couple of knives and basically supporting a grown man's weight on her wrist. It looks so effing stupid. It still ruins me to this day, though. It was shot well, but I hate that it happened. That the last thing he sees was Gail calling him to warn him on the cell phone. I mean, they did as best they could with it. I just hate that, given that there were like 95 killers in the movie or however many there were, they couldn't have had one of the guys be the one that did it. It had to be the 95-pound girl. It just looked weird. Like when they drop that reveal on you, you're like, come on. But I don't know, man. I'm mixed on Scream 7 without the Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera characters. Like, what is Scream 7 going to offer that Scream 4 didn't do? Like, wasn't that Sidney Prescott's hypothetical send-off? I know they tried to get her back for 5, but they had already told enough of Sidney's story. Like, where do they go with the Scream 7 storyline. Like I don't get it. Like I don't know that would be something I would want to see. You know, I feel like they've told her story. Like, do I need to see her do like she's even older now, and like one of her kids is Ghostface, or Ghostface is coming after her kids. Like, I mean, that seems like a cheap way to get people to be excited um about a horror sequel. I mean, I guess it's different than other slashers, I guess, but I think it's one more example of how Hollywood just sometimes you do need to just cut the cord. You need to let the ship sail. You need to move on. You need to put away old things on the shelf and embrace some new things. I think the Scream story has been told. There's not a whole lot of other, like, there's no meta interest in Scream. Like, that was the point of it in the first place, was to go over like the rules of a horror movie. And they've tried that to rehash that again in 5 and 6 by doing the whole, this is the rules of a reboot. This is the rules of a this. It doesn't work without that character. I can't remember what was that character's name from like the original trilogy that did that. It was Jamie Kennedy. Um, I wish he was still around. I wish a better character was around to do that kind of thing. But I think horror, as Kingsley and I talk about all the time on this channel, horror is simple. You can bang out a story idea, you keep the budget low, you pepper in one or two likable characters, especially your final girl. You throw in a couple of good jump scares. You don't overdo it because that's just cheap, you know, and you get a banging ROI. Like, that's the thing. Like, your return on investment for horror, like we talk about all the effing time, can be huge. It only takes one good idea like Blair Witch, or one good idea like Saw, and then boom, hundreds of millions of dollars for the studio, acclaim for the writers, acclaim for people that are in it sometimes, and you go from there. I don't think the world doesn't need a Scream 7 when there are literally hundreds of thousands of horror scripts floating around Hollywood. Like, instead of like spending $160 million on Scream 7, could you take 10 million of that and maybe pay 1,000 people to read a bunch of horror scripts and maybe pick 50 of them that are good? And then of those 50, pick like the 5 that are the best, and then give the rest of that 100 and whatever millions of dollars that I said and hand that out? Like, probably not a bad idea. You know, get 10, 20, 30, 50 horror movies for, 15, 20, 30 million a piece. And there you go. Like, you make some bang for your buck. Like, there's still a market out there for horror movies. Like, when they're good, and I'm not saying all time good. I'm not saying anybody's going to talk about these in like 10 years, 15 years, but undoubtedly there's some good horror out there. I mean, it was a pretty good adaptation. Chapter 2 fell off a bit, but people really resonated with things like Megan, with things like Smile. Terrifier's not my jam. Like, I'm not really into the gore stuff, but like, it's hitting. Like, people enjoy that. There's hundreds of Facebook fan pages out there and hashtags that trend. There's lore and fan pages for Art the Clown, the Terrifier on YouTube. So, I mean, a novel idea. And people have ideas for horror movies all the time. And I think it's the easiest thing to take a chance on, because it's the easiest thing to write a realistic script for without having to lower like what you're writing to accommodate a budget that you don't have. Like, like, I'd love to sit down and do a big banger superhero / fantasy movie with Kingsley sometime. It'd be fun to write that up, but we're not, because it's not anything anybody's going to give us $400 million to make. And this is the price tag on some of these movies now, guys. These movies are ridiculous. Like, did you see the thing the other day that said Snow White, through all of its reshoots right now, just passed like 500 million? They haven't spent like a nickel worth of real marketing on that yet. Like, if they spend 200 million on marketing, and that's not outside the realm of reason for these studios with big budget movies with the kind of backing they have. Imagine dropping a movie with a price tag of $750 million that already has a track record of having antagonized people into not wanting to go see it. Like, that's not house money. Like, you have to make that back or you're dead. Like, you're dead financially. Horror movies don't have to work like that. And I think that it's a tactical drawback that we don't get more of them. Like, if you subscribe to things like Shudder and Tubi, like, and I know it's kind of funny because it's like you can dunk on them. Like, Red Letter Media could do like entire segments on, best of the worst and reference like Tubi quality movies. But it's like, imagine some of those movies. Imagine the best of those crap horror movies if they didn't have budgets of like $1,500. Imagine if you gave like an interesting werewolf movie a budget of 30 mil, and actually gave it some like legitimate creative backing. Imagine what you could do with that kind of money and an original idea that's not saddled by focus groups, studio execs that think they know better. Like these idiots are the type of people that can be like, let's do Spaceship of the Living Dead or some bullshit. Like, yeah, some studio guy will back that. And instead of giving like an idea, instead of giving like money to like a college kid or something that won a contest that has a nifty screen idea for a new take on zombies that isn't rage virus, like I'd much rather see that. But those ideas are out there, folks. There's websites you can go check them out. I'm a big fan of simplyscripts.com has a bunch of good ones. Fanfic.net back in the day had a bunch of good unproduced stuff. Just get the creative juices flowing, man. You can go out there and check stuff out. Lots of good stuff out there. So yeah, guys, we're not going to talk about Assassin's Creed or Star Wars Outlaws, whatever. When those come back around, we'll get to those. I'll go one more because I know there's one more topic I wanted to get to because I wanted to close on something I enjoyed. A friend of mine let me borrow a graphic novel the other day. Something is Killing the Children. We were hanging out at our local comic store, as a matter of fact, and he happened to see that on the rack. I almost bought it. So I said, hey, I hear this is coming to Netflix. And he was like, oh, yeah, dude, I got that at home. It was pretty good. Let me let you borrow it. Read it in a setting. Couldn't put it down. Stranger Things vibe for sure. It's about a small town where kids go missing. It's brutally, the art is brutal, hyper violent. It's definitely not for your kids to read with you. But the Stranger Things vibe is the small town. It's like the world doesn't seem to exist beyond it yet through the first. I have the second installment coming through. But a Buffy the Vampire Slayer type character comes. Oh, dude, oh, stupid me. I had a graphic too. Boop. There we go. Like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer type of character comes to town, and Erica Slaughter investigating and she has some knowledge because she's dealt with this kind of it's a creature threat kind of scenario. She has info that the cops don't have. She has some backing, which is interesting and mysterious through the first book. I'm waiting desperately for the second installment to come through. But it's a situation that you see in those kind of classic 80s, 90s things where nobody believes the kid's version of what happened. And they even make it a point in the book, in the actual graphic novel, to where Erica explains to one of the kids that does survive, like the other main character, like, yeah, no, you can see it, but the adults can't see it. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, and then I think she's going to explain like magic or something behind it at some point, but she can fight. She's hand to hand. I think she's got a gun on her. She hasn't broken it out yet, but like, she's not a Mary Sue, and they didn't make her like a contemptible, unlikable biatch. You know what I mean? Like, she comes through and she's reassuring to the kid that survived. She plays along with law enforcement, and she's like, oh no, this is how it's going to go down. I'm going to do this. You're going to do that. I'm going to do this. But like, she doesn't try to like Wing Chun her way out of the handcuffs and then like destroy 6 sheriff's deputies on the way out so she can get back on the case. Like, maybe it happens. I think I'm like a year behind. I think there's like 7 of these, but it's been a good read so far. I'm very interested in seeing if they get into the origin of the monster, why it's taking kids, why certain ones kind of survive. If there's a magic system in here, because I'm guessing there is somewhere. We get shades of like secret monster hunting society in the first book, but it's all very ambiguous through the first installment, and it's making for a very, very interesting read. I'm wondering how Netflix is going to adapt this, though, because if I could show you some of the artwork, I would. Like, I don't really want to do that. My kid might be watching, and it's definitely not for 8-year-olds, in my opinion. But it is hyper violent, and I don't know. I mean, I guess they could just cut those particular frames from the story, but I don't even know so much that Netflix wants to do something Stranger Thingsy with like entire rooms or like caves full of like dead kids. It just seems like kind of weird. Like, Stranger Things gets away with Barb being dead in the Upside Down because she's a teenager, and that's allowable. Like, in this, it seems like, and I guess they're teens in this, so I guess that falls under like slasher rules. They age them up into like juniors, seniors. I guess that makes it acceptable for them to be monster victims, but it has those vibes. And if they cut out the hyper violence, they can get away with doing the story, which is going to have to unfold the mystery at some point. It brings in a couple of side characters who you think are going to be antagonistic based on the roles they play, like the sheriff, one of the older brothers who's like a younger adult, he's not a teen, of one of the kids that doesn't survive, and how he has to kind of flip sides once he realizes that the weird blonde chick isn't a psycho serial killer she's trying to help. So they are setting up some interesting players with some interesting conflicts. I recommend you guys go check it out. It was an easy read. It's probably about 90 pages or so, maybe 100 pages. It's on the cheap. It's only $15. You know, it's Something Killing the Children. It looks like there's a new one coming out this month. I think it's issue 8. But I'm having a blast. It's one of the better comics that I've read in a hot minute. Like I said, I'm always on board for anything that has that nostalgic bait of like group of kids from the 80s in a town that looks like the one I grew up in, dealing with something that the grown-ups don't believe is happening until it's too late, despite the mounting evidence. So Something is Killing the Children. I just wanted to end on that strong note. I think that's going to do it for me tonight, guys. I appreciate people popping in and out. Feel free to comment while we're going through this next time. The chat is always more fun while people are kind of engaging. King Z hopefully will be back and up and running next week with me. It's more fun having the conversation, but we'll keep you guys posted on everything important within the realm of nerddom. And I will see you guys in the next one. Later, everybody. No, I said later. Why is it not latering? Yeah, whatever. Bye, guys.